Today I'm going to take us for a more in-depth run through the extra controls and media centre functions in a Renault Zoe. Despite being really straightforward and easy to get along with the car, the Zoe still has plenty of functions, and I'm going to try and go through as many of them as I can with you now. To start with, I'm going to go through the driver-facing controls. First off, the steering wheel controls. The controls on the steering wheel are for the cruise control and the speed limiter, which are also controlled by these buttons just down here. To turn the cruise control on, you click the button down. To turn the speed limiter on, you click the button up. To operate it, you press the top button here. What is the plus button? That activates, in this instance, the speed limiter. It starts off at a speed limit setting of 20 miles an hour, but once it's activated, you use a plus and minus to go up and down. We'll just take it up to 30. There you go, so the speed limiter is now active. The buttons on the right hand side, the O button would be to override it, so you've popped out of a 30 into a 40, click override, it memorises it, and then to resume again, perhaps you go straight back into a 30, press R to resume. The functions for the cruise control are controlled in exactly the same way. And to turn off, obviously override, to make it all go away, just click the switch off and your speed limiter disappears. Just above the cruise control and speed limiter button is this button, Eco button. You give that a press, that puts the car into its eco mode, which basically increases the range of the vehicle at the expense of some performance, and also very much reduces the effectiveness of the heating and aircon system. Behind the steering wheel is this little control piece here, which is for controlling the media centre. You've got the buttons on the top, which will switch between different media and switch between radio, the radio channel. You've got your obviously your plus and minus volume controls. On the back, can't see it, but there's a little wheel that you can use to then scroll up and down between, say, tracks, for example. If you're listening to, say, you've got your media installed, or between radio stations, you've got it on radio. This button in the middle is for accepting and hanging up on phone calls. The last button on the steering wheel is this little one here, which activates your voice controls. Voice activation stuff can be a little bit unpredictable, but in the Zoe it isn't actually too bad. But you give that button a press.
What would you like to do?
There you go. You'll see it brings up on the screen a few things. You can navigate to a destination, you can call a phone number, or you can load up the applications. Now behind the steering wheel, also have the indicator and wiper stalk. The wiper stalk is on the right hand side. Click down once to put the wipers into auto. The end turns like this to adjust the rate at which it auto wipes on its intermittent setting. So that's for faster, that's for slower. Obviously, if you click further down, it won't be auto, you'll just set it to the different rates. Back to auto. This bit here is for doing the rear wiper. So to turn the rear wiper on, you just pull it towards you like that. To cancel the rear wiper, you pull it towards you a second time. Then obviously there's screen wash. So back activates the rear screen wash, forward activates the front. The stalk on the left hand side is your indicators left and right, and your headlight controls. You turn the end to go side lights, main lights, full on, or just auto lights. Normally have it set to auto lights. The car will turn itself on as and when it feels it needs to. And also you move to the centre here. You've got your fog lights by turning this. That will only work when you're on sort of permanently on main beams. And then obviously to flash. The screen display just here is altered by pressing the top button at the end of the wiper stalk. Give it a press and it brings up your trip counter. This has just been reset, but otherwise it will display total miles and then your distance since last reset. Consumption figures, what you're consuming. Total consumption figures, and then your averages. This box here, this affects your range predictor. So it's worth from time to time resetting this screen. You reset it in the same way you'd reset your trip counter by having that screen displayed and then pressing the bottom button on the end of the stalk. Behind the steering wheel in the top corner, we've got what Renault call the atmosphere button. And you can see just there. What that does is that changes this whole main screen display to display power usage and regen in different ways. This is my favourite setup. You've got a small battery, this sort of dial type sort of power and regen meter, and a colour changing background. But as you press it, it scrolls to different options. It's taken away the colour changing background here. Then it goes across to sort of an arrow display for regen and power usage, depending on what colour and which direction the arrows are going. Then you've got fat battery, again with this colour changing background display and not. Now the colour changing background display will start off as green, and depending on how you're driving, how economically you're driving, the colour will change, starting from green and finishing off in a very angry grey purple colour. Finally, this little cluster of buttons to the right of the steering wheel. I've got this one here, which of course opens the charging flap and disconnects the locking mechanism on your cable when it's plugged in and charged. This dial here controls the brightness on the screen display behind the steering wheel. The one next to it is the dip height of the lights, and this final one turns off the pedestrian warning sound. Briefly before I move on to the media centre controls, I'd like to just run through the heat and aircon system. This is the heat and aircon controls here. You press auto to activate it. Obviously you can adjust the temperature using the dial. I just leave it set around 20 degrees. This will adjust the fan speed. Once the car reaches temperature, it's worth having it as low as possible. Obviously, press auto, the car will do whatever it needs to get it to that temperature and maintain it. Obviously, this deals with the direction in which the warm or cold air blows. You've got your front screen demister and your rear screen demister. Remember to turn those off once the screen is demisted to preserve energy. The Zoe has what's called a comfort timer, which enables you to program the car so it will warm itself up before you get into it in the morning. To access the comfort timer menu, you press this button in the centre of the fan speed on the heating and aircon system, and it brings up this screen. To program in a time, as you can see currently it's set to off so that the car isn't going to warm itself up, but if you want to set a time in, you click edit and then change the time. Let's say you leave for work at 7 AM, I'll say 7:30, there you go, a bit more realistic. Press done, there you go. So then currently it's still set to off, but if you want the car to turn itself on at 7:30 each morning, warm itself up, you click that and then click done. Next to go through is the Zoe's touchscreen media centre. Lots to go through here, but the Zoe's media centre is a really nice, easy to use one. To start with, we're going to go through these few buttons on the right hand side. Obviously this button turns on your media centre. There's also access to volume control for the stereo as well. Don't need that, there we go. This will bring up the map on full screen if you press that little silver button. You press it again and it will bring up a prediction of how far the car will travel based on the current charge within it. Okay, so that's useful, and you can then use these buttons here to then zoom in or zoom out. Home button, very useful button. Whatever screen you're on, you press that and it returns you to your main screen setup. Now we'll move on to the actual touchscreen controls. First off, we've got this little plus symbol just here, which brings up a few options. The useful one on here is the change home screen option, which brings up a few choices of how you'd like your screen to be displayed and laid out. Music and energy flow, it's great. Number 5 just gives music and your navigation. Which one was it on there? That's got different things. So yeah, to pick the one that you like, we will actually just pick number 2. There you go. Now the star button brings up a kind of favourites menu, and on here you can store, let's say a favourite sort of navigational destinations. Just click on that and it will bring up your previously saved destinations. I've just got here on there. Equally, this one you can use to bring up and store radio stations. Take your pick. Radio 55, there we go, we'll pop that on. There you go. The last button on the bottom of here is the menu button. It may be the last button, but it's the button where everything is. So here are your various choices. This is where you access your sat-nav, multimedia including your radio as well as USB drives, auxiliary drives, phone for collecting your phone, and some other bits that we'll go through one by one. First off, I'm going to go through the navigation settings. Well, the navigation is reached via this navigation button on there. As you can see, it brings up the very familiar, simple to use TomTom system interface in case you've used it before. To navigate to a destination, click on Drive To, click on Address, you can put in the address, for here, for SL, there we go. Then you click Select, then you click Done, and there you go. And the sat-nav will start navigating. You can again use the home screen to get back to that, so you can view the sat-nav screen and everything else. To bring the sat-nav screen full screen, you click on there. Now I'll run through some of the other sat-nav menu settings. Change route, that's where you'll go to cancel a route, which is obviously quite useful. Alternatively, you can also use that to avoid roadblocks, for example, if you hit some traffic or something like that, or an actual closed road. You can use it to calculate alternative routes. Cancel routes, obviously very useful. Itineraries, you can use that to add different destinations and make a more complex route. So you can start here, where we are, for example, then you could use address to then add in another, and then another, and another, multiple destinations to create a more complex itinerary, places to go. Obviously, recent destinations will bring up your previous destinations. Charging stations will bring up a list of nearby charge points. Takes a little bit of time. There we go. So it's got a list of many charge points that are near here. Last couple of buttons, navigation services. Once you've got your R-Link set up, you can do a few bits and bobs in there, like setting the car to automatic traffic updates and things like that. Going into settings, some useful things in settings. Obviously, this is where you turn off the sat-nav voice guidance if you don't like that. You can choose different voices. You can obviously store your home location, which you do by just sort of typing in the address like you did before for navigating to a destination. You can also even change the symbol of the car displayed on the sat-nav screen to Formula 1 car, anything in the old Renault library there, even a little Twizy or in this case a Renault Zoe. Okay, the multimedia button allows you to access all your different media settings. Also you've got radio, brings up your different radio channels. Go back. Media enables you to select say your phone, if you've got a Bluetooth connected, a USB stick, which you've got plugged in, or an auxiliary input, something like an iPod. So I've got a USB in there at the moment, so it will bring up and select the tracks it's playing. There we go. See, the track controls, track skipping and volume, etc. can all be controlled by the touch screen, as well as the controls behind the steering wheel. You can either display pictures as well if you've got some on the USB stick and use the screen here. You can even do the same with playing some videos from certain formats on here. And if we go into settings, in there you can alter the sound settings for bass and treble, that kind of thing. Next is connecting your phone to the Renault Zoe, which you do via the phone button on the touch screen. Right, you connect your phone to your Zoe by, well, first off pressing the phone button here in the menu. Then you click Add Device, and then also get your phone searching for devices. And here we go. Zoe has identified Reese's phone. So click on that to select it. then starts going through its sort of pairing and connection process. Click pair on your phone. Click that. There we go. Allow it to sync contacts. Click OK on the Zoe screen. They're all paired up and doing their connecting thing. The next button is vehicle, which brings up a variety of sort of electric car related things. Driving eco, it brings up a trip report. So this is the report that you automatically get at the end of each drive, giving you a score out of 10, depending on how economically you've driven. Obviously the car's just been reset, so there's nothing on there. Electric vehicle, a few things in here. Energy flow is an interesting graphic which you can have playing when you're driving to show where energy is going, to the electric motor, from the motor to the battery, or in the case of at the moment, because we're stationary, from the battery to the heat and aircon system. Consumption details, again, more trip data, things like that. Obviously not much to show because we're not driving, the car's just been reset. Then you've got the charge scheduler, which is a lot like the comfort timer in terms of its setup. As you can see, the car's set to be always charging. However, say you had a cheap overnight electricity tariff, you might choose to select that as being the start point for when your car charges. You do that by pressing edit. Maybe your overnight tariff starts at 1 AM, so click that. Now the car will start charging at 1 o'clock in the morning. You can also edit the days on which this occurs through there. It may be that you want to charge in the daytime on a Saturday, for example, or you can set it to always charging. Comfort timer, obviously we went through that before. However, we accessed it via the button in the centre of the fan controls just there, but that's another place you can get to it, is in the electric vehicles menu. Final few buttons. I will click on the take care button. This only appears on the signature now versions. It's just a nice, pretty little graphic of the in-car ionizer and air quality outside the car. Not really very useful. Onboard computer, again, it's just another version of sort of the trip computer. And obviously since it's last reset, it will give you your averages, so it can be useful, more interesting to know. Then we'll go into settings, a few settings to put in there. Most of these I think are worth selecting. The only one that's not selected is this one here, which is when you plug a car in on charge, you can display in the dash screen behind the steering wheel how full the car is. By selecting that, it means once you've plugged it in, it will just disappear and you'll just have a blank screen. I'll leave it unchecked. It's quite handy to see where you're at charge-wise. We've got the services button next. It's just a variety of things that relate to R-Link Renault's online system. You can even set individual profiles. Largely unnecessary bits there. We might have a little bit of a play. System, there's some useful stuff. Obviously language you won't change. Display, you can alter brightness levels on the media center, daytime and nighttime. Sound, another place where you can access your bass and treble, things like that. Safety warnings, you might want to set a speed limit warning, so when you go over the speed limit the car beeps. Well, you probably don't want to, so that's where you do that there. Home screen, we've already covered that. That's where you select the different sort of home screen layouts, and some other bits that you would obviously just set when you first get the car. But overall, that's everything on the Zoe system. There you go. I hope that was helpful, having a little walk around your media centre and your Renault Zoe. It's nice to put a used system, which I really like. However, there's lots in there. Over time, we'll be adding some more bite-sized chunks to our video library, just in case there's anything particular you want to focus upon. Otherwise, remember, we're always at the end of the phone. If you have any questions or would like to give us a call. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy your Renault Zoe.